Max Hairston adds a new dimension to the Buffalo Bills cornerback room and defense. I'm going to break down the Bills' 2025 first-round pick today on Locked On Bills.
You are Locked On Bills, your daily Buffalo Bills podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Bills Mafia? It's Joe Marino, author of the Herd Mentality Substack, co-host of the Locked On NFL Scouting Podcast, co-host of the NFL First Read Podcast, and I'm your host of Locked On Bills. Want to thank you for making Locked On Bills your first listen every day, and a big welcome and shout out to our everydayers. You know who you are. Those of you who never miss a single episode, I appreciate y'all being here very, very much. I'd also like to invite you to subscribe or follow for free on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the qualified candidates that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/LockedOnNFL. Terms and conditions apply. Well, folks, the first round of the 2025 NFL Draft is in the books, and the Bills made a selection at number 30, picking Max Hairston, a cornerback from Kentucky. I'm going to break him down for you here today on this episode, tell you about his background, his strengths and weaknesses as a player, how the draft unfolded, how he fits this defense, and then, of course, we're going to take a look ahead to what the Bills can and should accomplish on day 2, where they own 2 second-round picks. But let's get into this. Max Hairston's the pick. All the time we spent preparing for this draft, Max Hairston is the puzzle piece out of Kentucky, a cornerback, 5'11" and 5'8", so right at almost 6 foot tall, which is the 40th percentile for corners. 183 pounds. That's the 8th percentile. Now, he's bulked up over 190 right now. We'll get into that, but at the combine, he weighed in at 183. Has 31-inch arms. That's also with the 76 and 7/8 inch wingspan, which is 67th percentile. So pretty good length here. 8 3/4 on the hand size. That's 17th percentile. Ran a 4.28 40-yard dash. That's 99th percentile speed. 39.5-inch vertical jump. That's 87th percentile. And a 10-foot 9-inch broad jump, 88th percentile. His RAS score, relative athleticism score, is a 9.63 out of 10. So this is a very, very dynamic athlete with explosive speed. There's no athletic concerns about this guy. He can really run. He's explosive, fluid. He's a plus athlete. There's no question about it. Hairston is 21 years old. He turns 22 in August. He's a native of West Bloomfield, Michigan. In high school, played receiver and cornerback. Also competed in basketball and track. At Kentucky, spent his entire college career at Kentucky, appeared in 32 games with 20 starts, collected 16 pass breakups, 6 interceptions, 3 forced fumbles. He led the SEC in interceptions in 2023. So I want to get into what I like about him as a player and my concerns. And, of course, I scouted Max Hairston, and I did an episode covering cornerback prospects that the Bills could draft, and I did a mini scouting report on him then. And so there's going to be a lot of congruency between what I say right now and then, because nothing's changed other than he's become a Buffalo Bill. So I hope that you can appreciate that this analysis on his skill set is authentic and not changing or influenced because now he's a Buffalo Bill. So what do I like about Max Hairston? He's aggressive. This is an aggressive football player in everything that he does. Whether that's playing in zone coverage and hunting the football, really driving with confidence on routes, driving on the ball, he is aggressive. And, he's really competitive in man coverage, where obviously he's got the quick feet, fluid hips to mirror and match routes and really carry speed down the field. It's a guy that can run with anybody. You typically go up against receivers, and you've probably even heard me say this, where that team doesn't have a defensive back that can run with certain receivers. Well, Maxwell Hairston can run with any receiver. He's got the foot speed and long speed and recovery speed to mirror and match and carry any receiver down the field. So he's aggressive because he knows he's got the athleticism. It's a mindset as well, but there's athletic confidence to be able to be willing to be sticky and stay in phase, but also it shows up in zone. Like, I think you could look at the measurables and the speed for Max Hairston and say, well, that's primarily a man corner. And while I think he is good in man, the way that this guy can play in zone and just read the backfield and drive on the football and make plays on the ball is really, really exciting. And so he's aggressive in coverage. He's also aggressive in how he plays the run and tackles. You know, this is a guy that's willing to fill the D gap and play off contact and tackle and play and run support. And one of the narratives out there about Max Hairston, and I said this before he was a Bill, I said, I think it's a misconception that this guy isn't a good tackler. I think that's lacking context where, you know, he played the first 4 games of 2024. Then he missed 5 games with a shoulder injury, came back for the last 3. And of course, who's in the last 3 games? Texas and Louisville. Of course, Texas is a big showcase game, and Louisville is a big rivalry game. He missed 3 tackles against Texas. He missed 2 against Louisville. And everybody thinks this guy can't tackle. Well, you know, he's coming back off a shoulder injury. And so if you watch prior to that, and if you watch 2023, you don't really come away with a big trend of tackling issues. In fact, I would even argue the opposite, where at 183 pounds, you know, maybe he needs to reel it back in a little bit. So I don't really see tackling issues. Now, this isn't going to be Christian Benford as a tackler or Rasul Douglas as a tackler. He doesn't have that type of mass, but he's got an appetite for it. And everything this dude does on a football field is aggressive and physical and urgent. It's obvious when you watch him play. I think he's got really good vision, really good eyes. The ball skills are plus. The way he can drive on the football and make plays on the ball, which obviously is not just because you're aggressive. It's because you can locate the ball, that you can play with good eye discipline and get yourself in positions to be disruptive at the catch point. Obviously, he's got speed to burn, like I talked about, can carry routes vertically. You know, he's a guy that's going to be able to run with Garrett Wilson and run with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle. You know, there's not a lot of guys that can do that. This guy can. There's a lot of upside here. Young player with a confident mindset, an aggressive mindset, no athletic restrictions whatsoever. Yeah, there's a ton of upside with this selection. And it certainly feels like there's a lot of personality with this guy as well. You know, one of the big conversation pieces coming out of the selection with Max Hairston being in Green Bay for the draft was how this guy, Hairston, for all the guys that got drafted that were at the draft, I mean, he was dapping up everybody, really being a hype man. And you just get the sense, even listening to his brief conference call with the Buffalo media, that there's a lot of personality here. And seems like a guy that just has a lot of charisma about him that will fit in well with this Bills locker room. So it's a lot to like here. What are the concerns? Well, I think the style of play that I just outlined to you, where he's aggressive and hunts, those are 2 words that you can't stop saying them when you watch the tape. He's aggressive and hunts everything that he does. Well, there's a risk-reward element to his game, right? You know, there's going to be times where he's going to jump a route, he's going to jump the ball, and he's going to be wrong, or he's going to be early, or he's going to be late, right? So there's a risk-reward element to the style of play that he offers. And I'll tell you this, generally speaking with football players, you much rather tell them, hey, reel it in, right? Reel it in a little bit, as opposed to, well, go sick them, right? You don't want to tell them that. You want guys that have that mindset, and he certainly does, but there's a risk-reward element to the way that he plays the game. I also wish that he had some more bulk to match his play style. You know, he measured at the combine at 183 pounds, and all reports are that he's at about 192 pounds right now, which is a big deal. You know, getting that extra mass on him is going to be important if he's going to be that type of player in the league where he's willing to put it on the line. Well, you need some mass to go with it. And so that's a concern, but also, you know, look, if he's bulking up, that's great, but want to see him be able to maintain that muscle mass and be able to have the hitting power and contact balance and physicality to to match the size. So that's something. And then there's also a sexual assault allegation when he was a freshman at Kentucky that needs to be vetted. I'm sure the Bills did. They had him in for a pre-draft visit. They spent time with him. They obviously probably consulted Ray Davis. It's not something that you just overlook. I am not making light of that, but it's on the resume. There's not a lot of information out there on it. I remember whenever I was scouting Hairston and trying to dig into the background, I didn't see much on it. And then somebody told me that there was this on his resume, and you kind of have to dig deep to find anything on it. And certainly something that you'd like to think the Bills are aware of, did all of their due diligence and came away comfortable with who they brought into their locker room. So that's him as a player. On the other side of it, I want to talk a little bit about how the night unfolded for the Bills and how we got to this selection of Max Hairston. And then, of course, discuss how he fits into this Bills defense. And, is this guy going to start? Is this guy going to be a rookie starter across from Christian Benford? We'll break that down for you here next. Folks, be sure to stick with me. As a small business owner, your work doesn't end when the clock hits 5. Your business is always on your mind, which means when it's time to hire, you need a partner that works just as hard as you do. That's where LinkedIn Jobs comes in. When you clock out, LinkedIn clocks in. LinkedIn makes it easy to post your job for free, share it with your network, and get qualified candidates all in one place. You can post your job with LinkedIn's new feature that can actually help you write job descriptions and then quickly get your job in front of the right people with deep candidate insights. And here's a pro tip: add the hashtag hiring frame to your profile picture to share, to double your reach to get those qualified candidates. There's no wonder that 72% of small businesses say LinkedIn helps them find high-quality hires. So post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnfl. That's linkedin.com/lockedonnfl to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. So it was interesting to see this draft unfold. And obviously, you're probably just like me. You're watching this unfold, and the only thing you're thinking about is, what does this mean for the Bills? What does this mean for the Bills? Who's going to be there at pick 30, right? And the defensive linemen just got wiped out, didn't they? 10 defensive linemen picked before the Bills are on the clock at 30. And that was what I was hopeful for. I wanted the trench player. I wanted the defensive lineman, in particular the interior guy. Well, Kenneth Grant goes 13 to Miami. Derek Harmon's off the board. Walter Nolan's off the board. Tyleik Williams is off the board. And you're like, well, nothing makes sense now at D-tackle. Defensive end certainly didn't make sense based on who was off the board and, of course, what's available still on day 2. And so I'm watching this unfold, and I'm like, well, maybe this Malachi Starks thing really makes sense. Well, of course, Baltimore drafts Malachi Starks. Maybe you're thinking, well, okay, is this the right scenario? Is this board unfolding in a way that it makes sense for Matthew Golden to be the pick and add this like dynamic speed receiver to the offense? And then he goes to the Packers. And then you're thinking, well, Will Johnson, that's a blue chipper, big time talent. And he falls completely out of the first round, not because of the skill set. He's got a degenerative knee issue. It certainly looks like he's failed medicals and is off teams' boards. And so as this started to shape up, the only thing left that made sense was the corner. And then it just came down to which corner. Trey Amos, a popular name out of Ole Miss, and then Maxwell Hairston out of Kentucky. And that's the pick, Max Hairston. That's the one the Bills liked. And so it was interesting to kind of see it play out. And I think it's hard to disagree with the direction based on the needs, right? If you look at the primary needs of this team as corner, D-tackle, D-end, your quote-unquote luxury picks of the Malachi Starks or Matthew Golden, they get snatched up. Well, it's got to be the corner, right? And Hairston is the guy that Bills go with, and I certainly understand it. It's a big-time upside play here with a guy that can take away the ball. And I'm excited to see how he fits into this defense. Brandon Beane, during his press conference after night 1, was asked about, of course, a million questions about Max Hairston, but the most interesting thing that he was asked was, with Tre'Davious White and Dane Jackson in the building, does that take the pressure off of Max Hairston to come in and start right away? And I thought Beane answered this in a really interesting way. He said, we feel good about the guys we have if Max isn't ready. It's an open competition. May the best man win. If not right away, maybe later in the season. He gives us something we don't have in the room. There's some indicators there in the messaging from Beane that this guy's got a chance as a rookie to start. Of course, I didn't expect him to commit to anything, right? I didn't expect Brandon Beane to say, it's Trey White's job to lose, or no, we drafted Max Hairston to start. I wouldn't have expected him to say either of those things. But he did say, hey, we do feel good about the guys we have if Max isn't ready. May the best man win. If it's not right away, maybe later in the season. Gives us something we don't have in the room. I think there's some indicators here that there's some intent that he can be a year one rookie starter. And I certainly hope that's the case. Like, I want the Bills to draft somebody in the first round that can come in and make an immediate impact, and you're happy about that player being in the lineup because they're good. And so I'm intrigued. He'll have to earn it. You know that. That's how everything goes in Buffalo. But I was pretty happy to hear Brandon Beane answer that question the way that he did. He could have said, Trey White's here to be that guy opposite of Benford, and when Hairston's ready, he'll go. He didn't say that. Kind of gives me some confidence that this can really happen. As for the impact on the scheme and the defense, of course, I don't want to be Captain Obvious here, but this guy was a first-round pick, and obviously the intent was for him to be the long-term answer opposite of Christian Benford. But what this does signal to me is a validation of something I've speculated on for several months now, and that the Bills want to become more man-oriented with how they play coverage. And again, it's not because Hairston's not a good zone corner. I think he's a great zone corner. I think that's like my favorite thing about him is how he plays in zone and triggers on the ball and triggers on routes and squeezes routes. Like, he's a good zone corner. But this is also a player that has the physical upside to be a good man corner. And I think we can all admit that we're tired of getting gashed in the passing game by a million paper cuts, getting quick game to death, quick passes, ball out quick. It's annoying. With a guy like Hairston, you can really take the air out of it. You can play tighter and not make it so easy for these smart, quick-triggered quarterbacks to dice us up anymore. So now you have three huge indicators to me that the Bills are wanting to play more man coverage. Number one is the direction that the defense went in the playoffs against Baltimore and Kansas City, the two most important games the Bills played last year. They played over 40% man coverage. Number two is the coaching hires, Ryan Nielsen, Mike Pellegrino, two guys with man coverage backgrounds. Number three, you just invested a first-round pick in a corner that runs sub 4.3 that can mirror and match. I mean, if you're picking up what I'm laying down here, there's some pretty good indicators here that this is where the Bills want to go, at least at an elevated frequency. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I think the Bills are primarily going to be a man team. In fact, pretty much no team in the league is. It's a zone league. But I think the Bills will probably be middle of the pack. Certainly not towards the bottom of the league in man coverage frequency. And I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to have indicators here of continued scheme evolution. And we've seen it, like the Bills have incorporated a dime package. They've been open to different types of edge rushers. They've went to having 2 matchup style linebackers as opposed to a traditional Mike and then a pursuit style weak side backer. There's been scheme evolution. And I hope that this is the next one, and I hope it's right. I hope it's the right thing. Because this defense getting diced up in the postseason in these playoff elimination game, it's old. It's getting old. And so I'm hoping that with this selection, with the coaching adjustments, with growth from young players, with continued investments in this defense, that the right mix of stuff is going to be in place so that Josh Allen can have a defense that doesn't let him down in the postseason anymore. And you feel good about your opportunity here to pair this guy with Christian Benford and have an exciting pair of young corners for the long haul here in Buffalo. All right, I said that the Bills need to continue building up this defense, and we'll talk about how they can do that on day 2 here on the other side of it. I'll give you some targets that I have in mind for Buffalo on Friday night. So, folks, be sure to stick with me. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. And I love how FanDuel makes betting so easy, whether it's picking my favorite team or diving into player props, from three-pointers to steals to assists. FanDuel has so many different ways that you can bet on your favorite player props. Plus, after the game tips off, you can even combine live prop bets into a same-game parlay for a chance to win big. So don't miss out. Head to FanDuel.com and claim your $250 in bonus bets today. So, folks, the Bills still have 9 selections to make, or they have 9 picks remaining in the 2025 NFL Draft. I know we all get so invested and interested in the first pick, but there's a lot more to come, and there's a lot more opportunities to build this roster out and address needs and add young talent. And the Bills enter night 2 of the draft with 2 second-round picks. Pick 56, pick 62. They don't pick in the 3rd round, but they do have 2 4th-round picks, 109 and 134. They have 3 5th-round picks and 2 6th-round picks. And, of course, it's day 2, so 56 and 62 are the only scheduled selections, but you have to think, with all that day 3 ammo, including 2 4s and 3 5s, that the Bills are in position to do some wheeling and dealing. Trade up from 56, trade up from 62, or stick and pick with either pick, and then package both of your 4ths to move into the 3rd round. I think something's going to happen like that. And I'm very hopeful that the Bills come out of day 2 with some answers for this D-line. You check the big box on night 1 with the corner, but as we've talked about for the last month, this team has 3 primary needs: corner, D tackle, and D end. 1 pick down, 1 box checked. Now it's time to get these trenches right up front on this defense and add some cost control talent. Now, the way that this board is shaking out, the D tackles, it's getting thin quick. You know, all this thought that Kenneth Grant's going to fall out of the 1st round. Are you kidding me? I can't believe I opened my mind to think that was a possibility. He goes top 15, goes to Miami. All these mock drafts, either the Bills pick him at 30 or he falls out of the 1st round. Well, that was poppycock, right? That didn't work out. But I mean, even Tyleik Williams went in the 1st round. Derek Harmon, Walter Nolan. So it got cleaned out pretty quick. And I'm hopeful that the Bills can come away with some help there, where I think it is now very comfortably the number 1 need left to fill. Comfortably. Even when you talk D end, it's more about, well, Bosa and Epinesa are expiring deals. You want to get ahead of that. D tackle, you need help now. Some names that I like, and I think the Bills like Josh Farmer a ton. I'm kind of like expecting Josh Farmer to be a Bill. He said in a press conference, actually, that he talks to the Bills every day. And look, I think he's very much the type of nose tackle the Bills would like. 310 pounds, 35-inch arms, rocked up frame, heavy hands, has the versatility to play the 3. I think the Bills are targeting him. Alfred Collins out of Texas. I mean, not really much in the way of pass rush, but might be the best run-stopping defensive tackle in this class. Ty Robinson, you've heard me talk about him out of Nebraska, the War Daddy. Now, he's a 3-tech, probably a guy that can play on the edge a little bit and reduce inside. He's not going to help you at nose. Darius Alexander out of Toledo is very interesting. I like him a lot. I think he can play the nose, penetration-style nose. Jamari Caldwell out of Oregon. If you like Tyleik Williams, my buzzword there is that you get 90% of Tyleik Williams and Jamari Caldwell. Jordan Phillips is one of my draft crushes out of Maryland. He could play the nose. Vernon Broughton out of Texas, tons of tools. He could play the nose. CJ West out of Indiana, he could play the nose. So those are some guys that I'm thinking about for this glaring need at defensive tackle, and I'm still hopeful that the Bills double dip. Now, I don't think they should double dip on day 2, but go ahead and get yourself Josh Farmer and then come back on day 3 and get yourself another guy. So there's answers at defensive tackle, but it's getting cleaned out pretty quick. And my urgency there is getting pretty high. So I'm hopeful that the first thing the Bills get done Friday night is this answer at D tackle. Now, I think on the other side of that, I think the edge rushers, things are taking shape pretty well here. And that's kind of always been my expectation, where I've said I think the strength of this draft is the edge rushers. And while I think it's an important need, kind of the urgency is not there to the degree that it is at D tackle and corner. You know, if you remember, like when I was talking about corner, I said, well, I got 9 guys with a first or a second round grade. Just get one of those 9. Okay, great job, Brandon Beane. You did that. Defensive tackle, things are getting a little bit tight, but D end, there's options. Donovan Izaraku might be the most well-rounded pass rusher in this class. He's available. Nick Scorton out of Texas A&M. Would love him. Landon Jackson out of Arkansas. I've talked about him a ton. JT Tuamoloau out of Ohio State. Would love him in the second round. Olu Oladejo out of UCLA. You've heard me talk about this guy, the linebacker convert that has all the ceiling in the world. That would be a pick that I love. Ashton Gelati out of Louisville. Baron Sorrell, Texas. Braden Swinson, LSU. You can get one of those guys and feel like you got kind of what you're looking for on the edge. But on day 2, I want to get somebody that can play this nose tackle role. And I want somebody that gives this team some pass rush ceiling. And I gave you a bunch of options. So the Bills come away with one of those D tackles, one of those D ends. Boy, I'm going to be happy. Now, there's also, I think, a wide receiver conversation to have. Like, it could make sense based on the way the board falls that receiver's the way to go, whether that's Torrey Horton out of Colorado State, who's become a bit of a crush of mine, or Jalen Knoll, Jalen Royals out of Utah State. There's probably some arguments to be made that based on the way the board falls, that's maybe the best path to go at 62 and maybe wait on the edge. But ultimately, what I'd love to see the Bills do is trade back into round 3. Pick at 56, pick at 62, and then package 109 and 132, get into the third round. And that gives you a chance to check 3 huge boxes. You can go D tackle, D end, and get yourself a receiver. So that would kind of be my ideal approach to day 2. We'll see what happens. We will see what happens. It's been fun so far. Falcons doing that crazy trade back in for James Pierce. That was nuts to me. I love Cleveland trading out of 2. They got so much value in that trade up from Jacksonville. The Giants come back in for Jackson Dart. Shedeur Sanders falls out. If you don't love the NFL draft, I don't know what to tell you. This is fun. This is about as good as it gets. Like, you know, you love like player movement in the NFL. And you're probably a football dork just like me, where you get excited about any headline that you can get, right? Like any piece of football news. Well, the NFL draft is literally just football news, player acquisition. Okay, you got a new look at these teams, and it's so fun. So We got 6 more rounds left to go, and I'm going to enjoy every second of it, and I can't wait to break it all down for you here on Locked On Bills. So don't miss anything. We have podcasts coming all weekend long. So this is the Friday show, but we're going to give you a Saturday show breaking down what the Bills do on day 2, and then I'll be doing podcasts all day long on Saturday. For however many players the Bills pick, we'll make sure we cover all of it here for you on Locked On Bills. I'm not going to make you wait. I'm going to get to work and get these opinions out there for you. All right, folks, that's it for today. As always, I kindly ask that you share, subscribe, rate, and review the podcast. Have a great rest of your day. Go Bills, and I look forward to catching up with you again after night 2.